Friday, May 29th, 2020. Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we're covering on today's episode of the show. The battle between Twitter and the Trump administration carried on over the last 24 hours with the expected executive order being signed and some tweets being labeled. We'll bring you up to date. And we've got another segment of Work Life for today where Ciara Pressler is joining us to tackle the question of whether you should go back to school. As always, she has some great advice. We'll also have the Director of Global Research Communications for Steelcase, Christine Congdon, on, talking about how our offices could look when we return and some ways we can be safe in the workplace. Plus, it's Friday, which means the illustrious technology editor of Flipboard, Mr. Ken Young, will join me to cover some of the biggest stories in tech over the last week for another edition of Tech Briefs. All of that and more on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. Hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us. We broadcast live here every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. So make sure you hit subscribe on whatever platform you are on. We have a lot to talk about today, a lot of fun stuff, so join the conversations that we get to have. Let's start it off with bringing you up to date with some tech news, and certainly we have to go back to this. One of the biggest trending stories out there right now in association with tech has to do with Donald Trump versus Twitter. So the continuing battle, now as you know, a couple of days ago, Twitter labeled some of the president's tweets as possibly misinformation. This carried over into yesterday where President Donald Trump signed an executive order which targeted social media platforms, essentially looking to roll back Section 230 protections. And what that does, there's a lot you can read into this. We've got a lot of information in Digital Trends, but just the brief synopsis of what that is it would roll back protections that platforms like Facebook and Twitter have that would hold them legally responsible for what people post on their platform, meaning it could open them up to lawsuits. Now, there's a lot that has to go on before that would actually be enforced, but this was the attempt here, or at least the start, to try to make that happen and roll back those protections that the president signed with that executive order. So going from there, that was one step that happened yesterday. So we'll see where that actually goes. If it's enforceable, there's a lot of discussion going on as far as even the legality of whether that's something that could happen. But certainly a move. Then over last night, there were some more things that happened with Twitter labeling some tweets from both President Trump and the White House account in association with some posts regarding the Minnesota protests that were going on. So the president posted something. There was implications on it that Twitter thought violated their policies. So what it said on there was, this tweet violates our policies regarding the glorification of violence based on the historical context of the last line, its connection to violence, and the risk it could inspire similar actions today. So Twitter labeled this, meaning that it blocks the tweet so you can't read it. You have to read that and click through in order to see it. It means the tweet cannot be retweeted as is. You can't like it, or excuse me, you can't like it or comment on it. You can retweet it, but that's where that was posted. And then we had the White House also post something, and that had the same label. So definitely some big things that are happening with that. I just wanted to bring you up to date with the facts as of right now. Obviously, this is a constantly changing situation. I would imagine there's a lot that's going to happen today. We'll keep you up to date at digitaltrends.com. We've got that there. We've got some opinion pieces about what this all means or what it could mean, all for you to peruse. But as far as the facts, that's something to bring you up to date with right there on what's going on with that. Let's continue on here with some more trending tech news. Let's go to shift gears here just a little bit and talk about how things are changing as we see some people getting back into both the workplace and getting outside of the house, but still maintaining social distancing. And Google is coming up with a unique way. Now, this is a test app that is out right now, but it is something that you can utilize if you are an Android user. Android users only right now, but this, who knows, maybe this could go somewhere else. So what happens is you use actually the Google Chrome browser, and it's called Sodar, and it helps you to maintain social distancing. So they're showcasing 2 meters, which is about 6 feet. And what you would do is you'd hold this up just like any other kind of AR function, and it would have a constant circle around you no matter where you are that you can swing around and always know that you are within or far enough away from someone to do that. It does recalibrate every time you move, so it's constantly updating it so you don't have to do that yourself. You can just hold it up and be like, hey, back up, you're within 2 meters. That's me telling an imaginary person. But that's something that you could do. So this is what Google is coming out with that. And again, it's using a technology called WebXR. This is an experiment. Who knows if this goes forward? But right now, if you do want to use it, and you are an Android user, again, Android only right now, we've got some guides at digitaltrends.com that you can kind of go through and take a look at that. It's sodar.withgoogle.com is the site that you can go to. But certainly interesting right there. So that is something that you can check out. Continuing on here with our trending topics here for Digital Trends News, we've got this. This is Uber making some changes. Now, naturally, a lot of people are not taking Ubers as much. We all know that. We don't even need to go into that, but here's something else that they are advertising now as people start to go back and make more trips. It's called the hourly function. So this is the idea that you could essentially rent an Uber for an hour. And it's designed, they said, for people who want to take multiple destinations, who maybe would have taken mass transit to do this or public transportation, but now don't feel safe doing that. So this would be where you could run multiple errands all with one car over an hour. And it's $50 an hour. Now, I think that they did say that this could be a little bit different depending on where you are, but $50 an hour because it doesn't include tolls and all kinds of other things that could come into that. But you get it for an hour, you get up to 3 different destinations, and then if you go over, you are charged more, and if you go under, you're still charged the $50. But it's something where they've been testing this out overseas in Australia. They said Australia, Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. So it's been tested out in other places, but now it's coming out to the U.S. in 12 different states. 12 different cities that are going to be testing it out, and then they expect it to expand out to other cities in the coming weeks. But another way to kind of get around and something that they're trying to do to get their drivers back on the road and also change it up. But that's an interesting thing they're doing. So again, it's a $50 hourly flat rate service that Uber is announcing. Continuing on here with our trending news that we like to bring you at the top of the show here every single day, and I thank everybody who's joining us. It's good to see everybody joining in the conversations. Let's talk about this. We'll talk about some video games right now. So this is a deal that came out, and I know a lot of us are playing games, and maybe a lot of us are missing live sports right now. Is the NFL going to be back in time? Well, I don't know. Nobody really knows yet. But right now, we do know that we're going to have Madden for a few more years. So the EA renewed its deal with the NFL, locking in Madden as the only NFL-approved football simulation game for several years. So it's going to last through the 2025 season, possibly extended to the 2026 season. So they really locked this down. And this comes on the heels of 2K signing a deal with the NFL. However, that deal doesn't allow for these kinds of games, for like simulation games where you're actually playing the game. You could do other side things maybe, but this is exclusive now to Madden. So they're going to have that for a while. They also said that going forward, and this will be something that's also equally interesting when we see the new consoles come out, they said that design, visualization, and development innovations that grow and deepen the world of Madden NFL are something that they're going to be working on. So you would imagine that's expanding all kinds of different capabilities with the impending technology that we're going to be getting. But Madden and the NFL exclusive, so that's going to be for a few more years. If you are a Madden player, then that's probably good news for you. We also, I'm just going to say this, coming up here a little bit later on in the show, we're going to be talking about some exclusive, or not exclusive, but some news about Sony and PlayStation 5. They're releasing some more news about that. So we'll talk about that later on in the show, but we'll bring you up to date. Final trending topic here to start off, something that I've been talking about all week, and really it's been trending all week. It has to do with SpaceX. Remember this? 2 days ago seems like a week ago right now, doesn't it? But that's when, or maybe it's 3 days ago. Yeah, Tuesday. Wednesday. There we go. I'm going to stop talking about that. Let's talk about going forward. Saturday. That's what we're talking about. This is when SpaceX is going to be attempting again to send up the demo to launch, to send 2 astronauts back up to the International Space Station. Right now, it's scheduled for around 3:30 Eastern Time, but there's a chance that weather may delay this again. That is what delayed it the last time, the threat of bad weather conditions. But if that doesn't happen, then Sunday is the next window. And if that doesn't happen, then we'll have to see where they go from there. But they will have keep finding windows until this actually does launch. But right now, Saturday looking like it's probably going to get delayed as of the weather reports right now. But who knows? Maybe it will happen. And I will say that we will be rebroadcasting that just like we always do. We've got a lot of guides, too, if you want to catch up to date and read some information about that, about how this is all working and why it's important and what goes into it, or even read about the spacesuits. We've got all of those details for you at digitaltrends.com.
Hey, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. It's now time for the product of the day.
All right, there we go. Let's talk about this. And the product of the day today is the Samsung Galaxy Buds. Yes, these are the wireless earbud headphones from Samsung, but fear not, they're good for Android and iOS users. So here's the thing. Taking a look at this, you can get up to 13 hours of battery life, which is great when you're using these. So no matter what, you don't have to worry about recharging them very quickly. If you do run out of battery, a quick 15-minute charge in the case will get you up to 1.7 hours of playtime. So you forgot it. It's like, oh, I was going to go on a run and I forgot. Well, that's a really quick way to solve that. And speaking of run, it is splash resistant, so it can get a little bit of sweat on it, a little bit of water on it, and instead even an accidental spill. They are wireless. It's got a built-in microphone. It's got Bluetooth 5.0 interface. So it's all up to date on all of that. And the inner design is designed to fit securely in your ear. They've gotten some good reviews from us. We've got reviews you can take a look at digitaltrends.com too. But yeah, that's what the deal is. And so what you want to do to take advantage of that is we've got a link that you'll click, and that link is where you'll go and take a look at what's going on. So normally these are $129.99. So if you're new to earbuds, that's on the lower end, but it's a good quality for that end. You go lower than that, then you get into kind of a different category. But right now they're on sale for $109.99. And again, that's the Samsung Galaxy Buds. So follow that link that's right there on your screen, or the link below me. Click it, go through, you can see it, take advantage of it, and pick yourself up some earbuds. All right, we've got a lot to talk about on today's show, as we always do. I know I always say that, but there's so much that we want to talk to you about. And coming up next, we're going to have a really great discussion. We've got futurist and business strategist Kathy Hackl is going to be joining us to talk about the future of work, how it's changing. Obviously, things have changed quickly, but are we going to be working with robots sooner than we thought we would? Well, that's part of what we'll talk about. So that's coming up next. Stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you very much for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button and join the show. We talk about all kinds of different things, and certainly the way that we work is changing rapidly. I mean, I could say 3 months ago, did I know I'd be broadcasting from my basement? No. But obviously the implications of this going forward are going to be interesting, and it is changing so fast, and that's what the discussion is that we want to have right now. Joining us, I am very excited to have here with us right now an author, futurist, and business strategist. We've got Cathy Hackl. Thank you so much for being here with us. Really excited to talk about this and so many different things. I guess to start off with, looking at the concept of the future of work that we've been discussing really as a whole for a long time, how quickly is this evolving based on what's going on?
Yeah, it's accelerating faster than a lot of us foresaw. And I work mostly in the virtual reality and augmented reality industry. And what you're seeing because of the pandemic is this increased interest in how to use these technologies to allow workers to be able to have meetings and be able to collaborate when there's a project that they need to collaborate on right now where we're not able to be together, right? So it's an accelerant, and it's just, it's not slowing down.
Have you seen the adoption rates of that kind of technologies, like AR and VR for offices, be, I guess, adopted at a faster rate than maybe some of these companies would have normally?
I'm completely seeing that. It's before you would have conversations with companies and they're like, okay, we'll experiment with a headset here or there, and now it's this whole panic. You've got to cut down on travel. No one's traveling. So being able to send an executive a headset and him being able to meet with a C-suite in virtual reality or even in augmented reality makes a huge difference. Because right now you and I are interacting on a flat screen. But if I'm able to put on the headset and be physically somewhere with colleagues in my avatar, there's this sense of presence. And I'll give you an example. Most of the meetings I'm having right now, I'm holding them in an app called Spatial, which is augmented reality. And, we're able to collaborate. We're able to work together on a board and write things together and move 3D models together at the same time, something that obviously we're not able to do right now because of the current situation. So definitely an acceleration and more adoption.
That's great. I've actually tried out Spatial before. It is really fascinating that way that you can interact with people and try that out and get that presence of someone, in the room, even though it's a little bit better than a flat screen for sure. Seeing that, and trying to extrapolate, and I know the news cycle changes very quickly. Everything changes. But looking forward to like maybe a year from now, do you see things kind of transitioning back to a normal place with interaction, or will this kind of technology be more prevalent beyond even the office space? But you mentioned travel, vacation, things like that. Will this be something that people will be using more?
I believe so. I think, in a year, we're going to be obviously looking at a very different office workspace when we do go back to an office. And if we go back to an office, not all workers are going to want to or need to do that. I think that also companies are looking at their bottom line and they're thinking about where they can cut costs. And if a virtual reality headset or an augmented reality headset cuts down on their travel budgets substantially, they're going to look at things to do in order to be able to to cut down on those budgets. So definitely we'll see more of an uptick. I also think we're going to see a lot more robots being used in the workplace, whether it's at restaurants or in the office. We're definitely going to see an uptick on that, on robots becoming really our coworkers.
Yeah, that is a fascinating discussion to have too. So when it comes to robotics in the office space, what kinds of robots do you see in there? Just as like a base level for a normal office that didn't previously have any kind of robotics, what kinds of things could you see robots doing for people in the office?
So about a year ago, I had an experience at a restaurant. I went to a restaurant in Atlanta, a pizza place, and they have robots that deliver your pizza, right? So I didn't have to touch, exchange money or touch someone or anything like that. So I think that you're going to start to see that also in the office, where you're going to have more robots delivering things. You're going to have, just kind of this uptick. Even I could see in companies like a Facebook or LinkedIn that have cafeterias, more robot baristas and more robot chefs possibly. feeding those workers that do go back to the office. And yeah, just kind of working alongside. Obviously, when you saw in the pandemic, was a lot of customer service companies were not ready for their workers to work from home, and all of a sudden there's this need for chatbots everywhere to be able to to help with customer service while the customer service representatives were getting ready and having all the technology they needed to work from home. So we're definitely seeing that co-evolution with technology and workers.
Do you see that also happening, I guess, in like autonomy when it comes to vehicles and things like that? Do you think that's going to be something that's going to be happening a lot faster as well?
I believe so. I mean, probably not in a year. I think that would be too soon to think about something like that. But definitely see it kind of progressing with autonomous vehicles, delivery, the last mile delivery robots that bring things to you at the last mile. So you don't have to actually, engage with a human being dropping something off at your doorstep, or you having to sign something when you get a package delivered. Those were already being tested at a lot of universities, and I can see that rolling out slowly in a lot of cities to cut down on that kind of human to human interaction.
Something else I wanted to ask you too, and it's just a concept, that I noticed that you had brought up, which is an augmented workforce. And I guess, can you give us a definition, an explanation of what that means and how that applies to everyone?
So I think people are really obsessed with thinking about robots and workers getting replaced by robots. I think that's where everyone goes, the robot apocalypse kind of situation. But I think more of it, right? I think more of it as, using technologies like AI and AR to help workers be more productive and more efficient. So that's what I mean by the augmented workforce. And, while the augmented workforce was maybe something that I saw 2 to 3 years down the line, it's been accelerated. And I see that need for technology and workers to come together even faster to be able to be more productive, to be more efficient. And obviously that's going to translate into better outcomes for businesses.
You mentioned, the robot apocalypse and that whole concept. I mean, I guess that's really what question that everybody has is, are the robots going to take our jobs?
Oh my goodness. I don't think we have enough time to answer a question like that. But what I would say is I'm pretty I'm not even utopian. I'm what's called protopian about the future of humanity and technology. And I do believe that, that we as humans and as workers are going to be able to use these technologies. I mean, if you look at how we use our computers, how we use our phones, we became augmented workers along the line using these technologies, right? So what's coming is kind of that next evolution of the augmentation of our workforce.
Nice. They're already training us. That's what you're saying. No, I'm just kidding. But Kathy, thank you so much for being here, to talk about this and to discuss this. I love hearing, somebody like you with all this knowledge and expertise in this, like what you envision this being. For everybody out there too, where should we send them to find out more about you and just everything that you've got going on?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is one of the places I share a lot of this crazy futuristic content of things that I'm out there doing, like changing lights using my brain, just everything that's out there. I'm sharing it on LinkedIn. So connect with me on LinkedIn, and then also kathyhackl.com.
Nice, will do. All right, Kathy, thank you so much for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you.
All right, really interesting discussion. I love talking about that kind of stuff with experts like Kathy. We've got more coming up here on Digital Trends Live, though, because we talk about so many different cool things. And up next, we have Ciara Pressler back for another edition of Work Life, where we're going to talk about something that a lot of people are considering. Should you go back to school? Should you be adding to your education? Well, that's what we're going to discuss and more. She'll answer some of your questions right after this with more Digital Trends Live. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thanks for joining us. And today we have another edition of Work Life, where we are joined by the one and only Ciara Pressler to talk about some important things that affect all of us, and she will guide us through this and provide the wonderful advice. Oh, Grandmaster Flash is back. Also, Ciara. Hi, Ciara. How you doing?
Hey, I'm here with my teaching assistant, Grandmaster Flash the Bunny, working from home still.
It's good to see the Grandmaster Flash is doing well as well. Well, I want to talk to you, and clearly you are our expert here with this advice. And I think something that a lot of people are wondering about is whether or not they should go get more education, go back to school. How should they handle this? And I guess to start off with, what do you think people should be thinking about?
Yeah, a lot of considerations before you take a jump back into education. Let me preface by saying that it is always a time to keep learning, but learning has never been more accessible than it is today. We are going into some economically difficult times, and we always see investments in education surge as the economy goes down. And so a lot of people are thinking about getting some training, like is it a good place to hide out in school for a while and let the economy recover?
Yeah, I think, and that's something that so many people have to consider, going forward with it. So what are some things that, when you start thinking about getting through the recession or even maybe changing your career, when do you think it's the right time for someone to go back to get some more education?
Well, it's always a good time to get more education, but is it always a good time to take yourself out of the game? So there's different ways to get education. Like I said, it's never been more accessible. So going back to school in the conventional, traditional sense isn't the right fit for everybody. You really have to think about, of course, what do I always say? What is your goal? And then find the path that is going to get you to your goal the best way.
So thinking about your goal, that's certainly an important thing. What are other factors that people should consider when they're getting ready to do this or deciding whether to do this? Some other major things they need to consider.
The first one, of course, is ROI, return on investment. So if you're thinking about going to school, maybe even for the first time, you just are graduating high school this year, congratulations, but you're having second thoughts about getting that bachelor's degree at a liberal arts college. Maybe there's a different way you can get the education you want. For example, if you're looking for a career in tech, you don't necessarily have to go to a four-year college or go get a master's degree in computer science. There are some amazing coding schools and software training schools out there that will help you get to a career in tech a lot faster in a matter of months, and so important, with much less debt. College is so expensive, and it's really outpaced inflation for how expensive it's gotten. And I think it's really time to look at alternatives to college for our financial health. You don't want to carry student debt for 20 years. So maybe a trade school is a better solution for you.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting too, because there's a lot of people that maybe don't realize that there are all those options out there. So do your research, I guess, figure out your goal, and then do the research on how to get there, and maybe there's different paths you can find. Definitely good things to do. What are some other, I guess, pro tips that you would have for people who are out there thinking about this? You mentioned trade school. That's a great idea. I don't know if we can expand on that, but some other things that people should be doing.
So this is something I learned from a client, and it is the smartest thing I've ever heard when it comes to getting an advanced degree. She was looking at getting an MFA because she's a photographer, and she already had a BFA in film. Not always a ton of ROI in those advanced arts degrees. And so she thought, okay, if I took 2 years and $80,000, which now would be like $160,000, what else could I do to get to where I want to go in my career? And part of that was working with me on her marketing strategy. And so, if you think about, if I want to be here in 2 years, here in 3 years, what are the other ways I can get there? For example, if I put all that money and time into building my network, if I put all of that money and time into, traveling, getting experience on the ground, I mean, if you could go work in that industry, maybe you could be paid to learn the things that you need to learn. School is not the only way to learn.
So, yeah, figuring out all those different paths and thinking about the fact that, there are different ways to get there. Definitely interesting. And something that everybody's really thinking about right now in so many different ways. Ciara, any other final advice you have for people with this? And also, where can they go to learn more from you?
Well, always talk to people who've actually done it and not just people who are marketing ways to you for you to learn how to do it. Go talk to or research people that you look up to who have the career that you want to have and find out how they got there. If you want to learn more about this, you can always follow pregamehq.com, pregamemagazine.com. And also my first book has a lot of advice on career change. It's called Exit Stage Right. It is written specifically for people in the arts. But exciting news, I am rewriting it for everyone to think about how to shape their own career path.
Nice. So pick it up now and then pick up the new copy when that comes out.
That's right.
Ciara, thank you so much for being here. It is always great having you on. Seriously, so much great advice. And this work-life segments, I want to let everybody know too, we've got a whole bunch of them. You can watch all of them. Always great things to learn about and things that affect us on both sides of that, work and life, and bringing that all together. And Ciara does that for us. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you, I think, maybe next week.
I hope so. See you, Greg.
All right, bye. All right, Ciara Pressler right here for Work Life. And again, continuing on with Digital Trends Live, we have so many different things that we'd like to bring to you and talk about, and we've got more coming up next. So for one, hit subscribe. I want to make sure that you do that. Next, let's talk about, we talked about the future of work. We talked about education. Let's talk about how the office is actually going to look. What is going back into an office going to be like? We're going to talk about that in part here coming up next. We've got a great guest, Christine Congdon, who's going to be talking about that. And so stick around. We'll be right back after this break with more Digital Trends Live. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibler again. Thanks for joining. Hit that subscribe button. You're watching right now. Just reach over there, click subscribe, share the show, let other people know about it, and join us for the discussions that we could have, which is all kinds of different things. And one thing that I think is on a lot of people's minds is how do we go back into offices? What is that transition going to be like? Should it even happen? These are part of the discussions we're going to have right now. Joining us, we have Christine Congdon, who's the Director of Global Research Communications for Steelcase. Thank you very much for being here. Excited to have you. To give everybody a little bit of concept, can you talk to us about what Steelcase is?
Yeah, Steelcase is the world's largest office furniture manufacturer. We serve clients around the world, Fortune 500 clients to small startups. And so we kind of have a front row seat to everything that's happening in the workplace.
I would imagine too, just over this, having that kind of mirrored experience and talking to so many different kinds of businesses, like you said, a front row experience. But with this last couple of months, certainly a lot of things have been changing and a lot of ideas about offices have changed. So for you, what have you seen with that, with all of this experience, about how organizations are bringing people back, or are they bringing people back in?
Yeah, well, the images you showed a minute ago were a reminder of our origin, which is always about safety. Office fires used to be a huge concern at the turn of the 20th century. And that was how we got started, was actually building waste baskets to contain cigarette ashes from starting office fires. But today we're very focused on how do we create workplaces that are both compelling and safe. Because right now there's a lot of predictions that the workplace is going to go away, because now we've been through an experimentation with working from home, and that's gotten us through the crisis for the most part. And so people are saying, well, do we need offices anymore? And I would suggest that there's some misconceptions that we need to address to be able to help people have long-term strategies. So they really need to think about productivity. There's a belief system that people are as productive at home as they were in the workplace, but it depends on how you measure productivity. Yes, I can do routine work pretty well, but my boss doesn't need me to empty my in basket efficiently. My boss needs me to come up with a good idea and solve problems. And that kind of innovation work is what we found through years of research happens best when people are in place. And when they're together with one another and they're able to interact and ladder on ideas and exchange thoughts. And innovation is more critical to organizations right now than ever before. There's also some hidden costs. Organizations, some might think, well, I could save a lot of money if I don't have people working at home, or if I don't have people working at the office, rather. But there's actually some hidden costs that they need to think about as well, because culture is your secret sauce right now. Culture is what's going to pull organizations through the crisis. And you really don't want to outsource your culture to an online platform, no matter how good it is. We just can't build those kinds of relationships. And we actually lose social capital when we're apart from one another for long periods of time. It's kind of worked for us during the crisis because we had relationships built up. But the more that we're separated from one another, the more we lose that sense of relationship. And if you don't have it, work slows down. No matter, again, how good your platform is. And then finally, I just
Definitely.
say that.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Greg.
Oh, no. I want to hear what your final one was. Then I just had another
Okay.
question just about offices.
Well, I think a lot of organizations are thinking about the well-being of their employees, which is absolutely the right thing to do. We need to bring people back in ways that are safe, but their long-term well-being from being at home really is something they have to think about, because people were feeling isolated before the whole panic happened. And now they might be feeling even more isolated. They're actually working longer hours. On average in the US, people are working 3 hours longer than they used to before the pandemic. And that's not going to be sustainable for the long term for people to just keep working at such an intense level. So I think we really need to think about the ramifications before we jump to any sort of conclusion that we're all going to be working from home forever.
Those are all great factors for organizations and employees to think about too. Just all of that,
Yeah.
working longer hours and how do you manage that? Another question that I have, and I feel like a lot of people do and have pondered, is when we do go back into the office. Say that does happen where you bring people back in. Obviously, with social distancing, imagining that's still going to be something that's important for a while.
Right.
How can we rearrange offices or utilize furniture to maintain that and still get those benefits of being in the office?
Sure. Well, being successful at bringing people back safely it's a complicated plan. It was easier to send us all home than it is to bring us back. And there's really, you have to think, of course, about employer policies and employee behaviors, but the physical space can actually help shape behaviors. It can help guide us toward the ways that we really need to interact when we're in the workplace. So, for example, our policies or the recommendations that we make to our clients is to think about density, geometry, and division. And by density, that's really thinking about how many people you have in the office and have enough space to be able to allow people to distance from one another at least 6 feet. But geometry is another thing to consider. We can reorient the furniture. Freestanding furniture can be moved at different angles to where we're not facing other people directly. It can be arranged to allow us to have more space between people and to have different traffic patterns so we're not getting really close to one another. And then division is another option that can be used, particularly when density is difficult to achieve. And that's really about using screens or different kinds of barriers. And there's a range of options that can be more permanent or things that could be more temporary that will allow people to be able to create just a little sense of barrier and separation from one another when they're back in the workplace. You know, the workplace wasn't really designed originally to think about disease mitigation. That wasn't a job that it had to do, right? But now that's something that organizations all over the world have to start thinking about what we can do in the workplace to help prevent the spread of the disease within our spaces.
So many factors and so many things to think about, and it's all changing so quickly. But certainly, you're at the forefront of that, of rethinking this and helping everybody out with that. And for all those businesses out there too, from small to large that are all considering these same options, what's the best place they can go to find out more information about what Steelcase does?
Sure. Well, Steelcase published a guide that is called Navigating What's Next, the Post-COVID Workplace. And you can just go to steelcase.com. It's right on the homepage. The guide will walk you through 3 time horizons, what you need to think about now, what you might need to think about in the near term, a few months out after people are beginning to return to work, and then really thinking about the long term. What are the opportunities for rethinking the workplace in years to come? Because we know that this pandemic will eventually pass, but we're going to face other crises, whether it be another health-based crisis or a weather crisis. And so the workplace really needs to be designed to be adaptable, to be able to respond quickly and to be resilient in the face of whatever circumstances we might encounter.
Resiliency, yeah, 100%, because no matter what it is, you're going to have to figure out how to get over it and get past that. And I want to say thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really interesting discussion and thinking about all of these different things that really all of us have to think about, no matter what your job is, about
Right.
how we're going to interact and go forward and how it's going to change. And I appreciate you being here on Digital Trends Live to discuss it with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. We're very happy to help.
Great. So great information right there for everybody. Like you said, go to steelcase.com and then you can take a look at some of their guides. But, we're all thinking about this, it's just how that's going to work out. And so changing up the furniture and the geometry of a room, that's very interesting on how that would all work out. All right, continuing on here with Digital Trends Live, we've got Mr. Ken Young, the technology editor for Flipboard, who's joining us next to talk about tech briefs. We've got some big things we're going to talk about, bring you up to date with. We do have some breaking news too that we're going to talk about towards the end of the segment, so you won't want to miss that. So stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button because you do not want to miss what we talk about. Also, subscribe to the podcast for Tech Briefs because that's what time it is. It's time for Tech Briefs here at Digital Trends. Okay, so I am Greg Nibbler. I'm going to be joined right now by Mr. Ken Young, the technology editor for Flipboard. Ken, hello, sir. How you doing?
Hey, Greg. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you as well. So much to talk about, so much to bring people up to date with. And I think first we have to talk about, towards the beginning of this week, definitely the biggest news that was going on and still continuing on has to be the SpaceX launch, where SpaceX was going to send 2 astronauts to the International Space Station from American soil for the first time in almost 10 years, and also the first commercial organization to do this, which is huge. I got to say myself, I was so excited for that launch on when that was going to be happening. But then, of course, it was scrubbed about 12 minutes before it happened due to weather concerns, which is important. Certainly the astronauts' safety is a big deal there. But I mean, I got to say, it was really exciting seeing this happen again. And I think that's one of the great things about this is just bringing that excitement back to space travel and exploration.
Right, and this is, and the week just kind of been filled with more news about the pandemic, with 100,000 American people have died from COVID-19, to the sadness of what everything else is going on in the world and in this country. Seeing the on Wednesday with the SpaceX the Demo 2 launch, that was it was invigorating, right? It brought hope to a lot of people, in terms of like, look, we're making advancements in terms of technology and development in terms of in humanity. We were, a lot of people were captivated by watching, whether it's on YouTube or on countless live streams or on TV, this there's this anticipation in terms of like, we're going to go back into space, launching from US soil for the first time in over a decade. And we were all looking forward to it. It was, like you said, it was like up until like about 15 minutes or so, T-minus 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden they had to scrub the launch. And unfortunately, everything seemed to be going okay, based on what Mission Control and what SpaceX has been talking about. But unfortunately, the weather wasn't cooperating. Now, we're looking at Saturday for the round 2, this second attempt. Unfortunately, if the weather doesn't cooperate, then they have Sunday. After that, they haven't said what the next attempt would be after that. But I think when you look at what's happening in Florida, there were a lot of notables there. The president, the vice president, Secretary of Education, Elon Musk was there as well. And it's something that Elon Musk has said during one of the interviews ahead of the anticipated launch, is that, look, he hopes that when kids see these spacesuits that he spent 3 to 4 years on, he hopes that that kids will want to wear these uniforms and be motivated and have the inspiration to become astronauts themselves. So, he's putting hope back into our next generation to say, look, you are capable of going into space and beyond, because he doesn't see that the International Space Station is just the end goal. He sees going to the moon and ultimately to Mars. And as we know, as we've heard many times, this is not, after the SpaceX, after Demo 2's SpaceX launch, then there's going to be more launches for NASA, and then also for space travel as well, for space tourism. So this is the new chapter of commercial space tourism. And after that, who knows what, literally the sky is no longer the limit, right? Space is space is endless. So who knows what's going to happen? I mean, there's pressure from space now, from SpaceX going into space. Now you have Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin, and many others that are waiting in the wings.
Right, a lot of them there, and I think that point with the spacesuits and just having that design, the whole story behind those too being partially inspired by comic book superheroes, to try to bring that to it. I think it's really, really interesting. We've got a lot of details about that too that people can follow up on, but it's exciting stuff. So hopefully they make it on Saturday, but the astronaut safety is the most important thing with this. So if it doesn't happen then, if it doesn't happen Sunday, it will happen. So we'll get to see it here at some point, but definitely really, really cool things that are happening with that. Continuing on from there, trending news, we have the rollout of yet another streaming service with HBO Max, which is really expanding upon the HBO services they already had, which we all know they're exclusive shows. Now with HBO Max, they bring in thousands of things they're bringing in with that Warner Media power that they've got, and so you're seeing shows like Friends, you're seeing all kinds of different shows that are coming on. I just saw that there was a deal apparently struck for some other things that they're going to be bringing on, but the rollout itself was a little confusing for something as big a powerhouse as HBO is. The who got it was very confusing because they had to strike individual deals to get people who are already subscribed to HBO to have it automatically upgraded. And it depends on which one you had, whether or not you got the upgrade. I did not get the upgrade. I subscribed through Prime, and that didn't come through because I didn't strike a deal with Amazon. But yeah, other people did. And I believe, did you actually get the upgrade to it? Do you have HBO Max right now?
So I actually haven't checked yet. I've been just so busy with work and playing on my PS4 that I haven't actually had a chance to do that. I've kind of been holding out just because in a previous episode of Tech Briefs, we talked about NBC's Peacock, and theoretically that was supposed to arrive on Comcast. So when I tried it, I didn't get it because it was some weird timing issue. So I'm kind of holding out a few days to see what's happening with that, whether I actually get HBO Max or not. But what's you bring up an interesting point, right? I mean, we've harked on this, and we've poked fun at this with HBO Max, and this it's the confusion, right, with Warner Media's branding, right? Whether it's HBO Go, HBO Max, HBO Now, all these different services. Like, which one am I getting? Who's on first, right? But when you see where it's available now, normally it costs $14.99 a month. But then you're right; they have a lot of deals that are available that typical with all these streaming services.
Right.
But they did strike deals obviously with AT&T. I mean, parent company, might as well, right? So you're going to get that get HBO Max for free. If you're on Comcast, again, with as you mentioned, they struck a last minute deal, literally last minute deal. So now those that are on Flex, Xfinity Flex or Xfinity X1 will get it for free as well. But I believe you also have to be an HBO subscriber, period. But then those that are on Amazon, as like yourself, Greg, you don't have it. Amazon Prime doesn't have it yet. Neither does customers that are on Roku. So the streaming platforms don't have access to Warner Media's streaming service. Those that are on traditional cable have access to HBO Max. I don't know if there's something to be said about that, but it's an interesting little tie-in there.
Right.
But those that have access to it, I mean, you have a huge library of things, both from original content to a lot of the classics, Friends, for the first time, all the Studio Ghibli Japanese animations. I mean, come on, Totoro. I mean, yes, if I have it on Comcast, I'm totally binge watching it this weekend, because it's one of my favorites. And then also you have a lot of these exclusives. And eventually, those that, if you hold out hope by 2021, you will get what everyone really, really wants, the Snyder's Cut edition of Justice League.
Which, right? Because that will be coming out. I just got sent the info on the one that they struck a deal with apparently today was for Young Sheldon. So those Big Bang Theory fans, they paid about $600 million for Big Bang Theory. And now they're apparently acquired Young Sheldon. So they're buying up all these other ones too, just to make sure that they have that on there. But it's an interesting service. I will look forward to seeing it when I finally get it. Just make a deal with Prime. All right, continue on. We've got just a little bit of time left there to talk about something else with PlayStation. We've got some news that came out this week. We did get to see Last of Us Part 2. We got to see some gameplay, finally. But PlayStation 5, we've been waiting for more rollouts. Xbox been showing all kinds of different things for the Series X. We know what it looks like. We've got some other gameplay things that they've been doing. They're planning more events. But finally, just today, we did get an announcement that PlayStation is going to be having an event on June 4th. Where they're going to show the PlayStation 5, some more gameplay. They also did say that they're going to be asking game developers that when they release PlayStation 4 games starting in July, they need to be compatible for PlayStation 5 as well. So that's kind of a big move. We'll see how that actually happens. I don't know what that takes on the development side, but at least we're getting some news about the PlayStation 5. I'm excited about it.
And I think we've kind of anticipated. I mean, had the pandemic not happened, a week from next week, actually within 2 weeks, would have been the start of E3, right? So this is kind of on point for these companies to make their debut, make their announcements of new consoles and whatnot. Whether or not we're actually going to see the game console, the actual PS5, I don't know. I mean, we've already seen their DualSense controller, but yeah, I mean, we'll start to see some gameplay. Interesting to note that Microsoft did something similar a couple of weeks ago, but it seems that they've gotten some criticism from folks that were watching Microsoft's 2020 Inside Xbox event, saying that it wasn't truly a gameplay experience that they're shown. So we'll see if Sony actually corrects that and avoids that type of criticism. I'm curious to see, like, what is that. I don't know, that signature game that Sony will unveil and to really show off the power of the PS5. With Microsoft, that it was Assassin's Creed Valhalla. What will it be for the PS5? Will it be Cyberpunk 2077? Will it be The Last of Us, as you mentioned? A little bit more details behind that. I mean, could it be the next GTA, which, although I think that's going to be delayed, that won't be for a few more years. But there's this is we're inching closer to actually seeing more and more about the PS5. And as you mentioned, with the backwards compatibility for PS5. Now, this comes on the heels of Microsoft issuing a blog post earlier this week saying they are going to have, with the Xbox Series X, they're going to have thousands of games that will be backwards compatible. So on the Xbox Series X, you'll be able to play games from the Xbox One and all the predecessors from that on the newest game console. I'd like to assume that for the PS5, you'll have that same type of mentality, similar to with the PS4 and beyond. But I wonder though. With the Greg, remember with Microsoft event, they had this event. I think it was Smart Install or something like that, right? Within Microsoft Series X. I wonder if Sony will implement something similar for the PS4 for the PS5, because that'll be, I think that makes it interesting. I mean, it won't be, pioneering for Sony, but it'll be certainly helpful in terms of improving that beyond just added graphics, processors. Speed and those type of things.
Ray tracing, all of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I will just one thing that you did mention, the Valhalla thing. As an Assassin's Creed fan, you know that I am. I was not happy with that because that was not game footage. That was the cinema stuff. I want to see the actual game footage, but maybe that's what Sony will show. Maybe they'll actually show the real game footage and one up Xbox. We'll have to see. I know you want to see GTA 6, but all right. There it is. We've got a podcast as well. I want to remind everybody to hit subscribe to the audio version of this show. Wherever you get podcasts, go find Tech Briefs. Every week, Ken and I will bring you up to date with some of the big stories out of tech. And there's always a lot to cover, so we just highlight a few of them, give you a little bit of knowledge going into the weekend, and then next week we'll bring you up to date with whatever we know at that point, because who knows? A week from now, everything could change. But Ken, always good to see you. I will talk to you next week with another episode.
Stay safe. See you next week.
All right, Ken Young right here for Tech Briefs. And again, thank you, everybody, for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. I want you to hit that subscribe button because we're here every week, every day of every week. Well, maybe not Saturday and Sunday, but there is something I want to bring up with that. So tomorrow, with the SpaceX launch, we will be rebroadcasting that. So whatever platform you're watching us on right now, we'll bring it directly to you. So you'll get the notification. It'll be starting at 8 a.m. Pacific, I believe. On Saturday, we'll be broadcasting that, so you can definitely follow along. I'll be doing that. I'm excited about it. Even if it gets scrubbed again, I'm I'm still going to follow it because I want to watch this launch. And I want to say thank you for watching us. So again, hit the subscribe button. Next week, we've got all kinds of stuff planned for you, just like we always do. Drew Prindle will be here on Monday with awesome tech you can't buy yet. We've got Davin Matthews with a big exclusive that's going to be on here, and all of our usual guests, plus more. So thanks for joining us. I'll talk to you next week with another episode of Digital Trends Live.